Hello, everyone. I'm Clark Cahill, Events Manager with the South China Morning Post. Thank you all for being here with us for the latest segment of our digital transformation series, Reshaping Data Governance and Compliance to Thrive in a New Normal. Before we get into things, we need to thank our gold sponsor for this webinar, which is Microsoft. To kick things off, we have a keynote presentation coming from Nelson Yuen, who is a advanced compliance global black belt for cybersecurity solution group with Microsoft Asia. I'll pass things over to Nelson to begin his presentation.
Hello, thank you, Clark. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to join us today. So, I'm Nelson Yun, a global black belt from Microsoft Compliance Solutions. Today, I'm glad to be here and kickstart the events. Let's get started with talking about some of the challenges that we are facing. You may also facing in the compliance space, as we have talked to with a broad range of the customers that we capture some of the consistent things the people they are struggling with. When it comes to compliance, data governance and project, they will love you may have a similar difficulties, right? So, but as Microsoft, that we want to better understand our customers, how the compliance officer or decision maker, they're handling the information protections, risk management, and also compliance in the organization. So then last year that we conduct a survey with 360 compliance officer and also the senior executive. They're from a different background and across a different size of organizations. That I want to show you some of the findings that we got from the survey. There are a couple of areas that actually is very important during the consideration for the compliance project. They all quite a lot of feedback that is actually increase the security and protection. That is one of the top thing that thing about the compliance project. But at the same time, how they can actually to integrate and easy to implement the solutions with their number of the different technologies. For example, they have on-premises solutions, they have a cloud solution, or even in a hybrid environment. And the solution, how they can easily integrate with the workflow and the process so that they can easily track and respond to the incidents. So those are the key areas they think that are really important when they consider project. Enabling productivity while maintaining security standard and also worry about the potential leak are the top priority, are the concern for those decision maker and the senior executive. So nowadays that we know still a lot of organizations, they execute the work from home policy, and that enable the user productivities. They are able to work everywhere on any machines, but at the same time, how the organization they ensure the security, that without sacrificing the security level, that is a challenging. And also in today, well, the user they have a different way to communicate with a colleague and also with the external partner, with the customers, and even they need to share some sensitive information. And also they need to collaborate together on some important sensitive documents. So how they're able to track and also protect information, but allow the secure collaboration, that is another thing that they really concerned about. And even though they send an email or the documents to the external party, how they can still keep control of it, that is also a concern areas. Apart from that, we also summarize the key four challenges that is we heard from our customers. Today, with a data doubling every 2 years on average, that is more critical than ever that you have a simple tools to understand the risk and this increase of these sensitive information in the organization. And one thing you may also have to keep track all the data. But actually, we heard the feedback over the half of the organization. They say, hey, they're worried about to know where the data is. Actually, without the visibility and tools to discover, classify, and govern your critical business data, there is an unknown level of risk and also create a necessary amount of uncertainty. And also the data actually is not static, right? Employees throughout your organization are creating, sharing, and storing data every minute of every day. Without the automations of machine learning, scaling of the process and the workflow to adjust the risk of the internal threat and also the policy violation is really unsustainable. In fact, manual data management tasks actually can be reduced by 45% with machine learning and automation. Lastly, finally, the key part would be the how to comply with the regulations. Keep tracking the regulation is a shocking task, especially we understand that given on average over 200 daily update from those global regulatory agency. Today, it's only about 10% of the world have privacy law cover. But if we look at the Gartner recent report, after just 2 years later, there is a 65% of the world will have the personal data covered by the modern regulation. So what does it mean? Is the more and more organization and they have a pressure to protect the user privacy, protect the customer, the personal informations. Otherwise, they will damage their reputation, or even they have got the huge penalty from this regulator. So Microsoft, we built our technology with the basic 3 key foundation principles. Your business need to grow and evolve. Your employee require to seamless web experience. A secure environment allow that to happen. That we are committed to deliver a seamless experience in built-in protection that work across the platform. Our approach is to secure deliver a simplified experience for end user, ensure everyone can get the job done in a secure way, and also regardless where they work and which tools they use. AI and machine learning is a cut through the noise and eliminate the repetitive tasks, so they can focus on what matters with the speed and accuracy. So if we are going to help you to protect the most important asset, our technology needs to work in the real world. Microsoft solution integrate across the ecosystem for connecting different identities, device, application, and data. That helps you to close the gap in coverage, reducing risk, and also simplify the portfolio. These are the 3 key principles that we behind our product design thinking. Data has a life cycle from a minute that create and enter to your organization. It is difficult to control in all aspects of the data at all time, but you can do it systematically, develop an accurate understanding of your data, location, securing, classifying, and also reporting of your data. We are at a unique position to help you to reduce the data risk with the intelligent compliance and the risk management solution in 4 key areas. Information protection, how to protect information, and also how to identify insider in your organization that potentially cause you trouble, and also how to quickly do the investigations to collect the evidence then for the lawsuit. And at the end, that how you can manage the different regulations changes. So with the compliance management tools. So let's take a look at the first 2 areas. I think that is really relevant for the information protection and governance. So information protection and governance help our customer to know their data better to protect and govern. So first of all, the technology can help you to identify where is your information, the sensitive information they are, and then help you to apply the protections by doing the classifications with the label on the documents that you can also integrate with the DLP solution to track the user flow in and out in your organization. At the end of the data lifecycle, that you can also think about how to use the retention policy to make sure that some information that is not, which is not necessarily to sit forever in your organization, that you should have a disposal review. This is set for the information protection and governance. Another area is also hot hot topic and also very interesting is that data is shared and accessed and stored within your organization. But it's more critical than you are able to identify, is there any internal threat inside in your organization that may potentially violate your company policy. So a solution that gives you rich insight and from a signal from a different system, for example, from the HR system that we know, hey, the user resigned, and from the endpoint that we know, hey, before they resign, the user actually download a ton of the files from a SharePoint, from your file server and copy to USB or print it out. They may do it low and slow profile, so could be done in the last a few weeks or months. Then you need to have such a machine learning to help you to identify that. And the privacy also is one of the concern that in lots of organizations that because that they don't want to keep track everybody, but just only want to keep track those a potential malicious or careless user. So masking the user identity is important during investigation, but you can unmask it after that and during the lawsuit or the take the legal action process. Then you can unmask and identify who they are. That also control your bias and also control the conflict of interest. So I think these are two areas that we can further talk about in sections and also in the futures. That is really key for the data governance and control. So I hope this section give you an overview of the latest trend and also the latest technologies. Thank you so much. Back to you, Clark.
Thank you, Nelson. We'll now be shifting over to our panel discussion, but before I introduce the panel, we have a polling question that we would like our audience to answer. That question is, does your organization have a complete end-to-end view of data governance compliance? Yes, completely, partially, no, not really, or we are in plans to enable documentation of lineage. So while our audience answers our polling question that we've just sent out to everyone, I'd like to introduce our panel now. Joining our session are Harry Poon, who is a cybersecurity executive with Microsoft Greater China, Patrick Liu, who's the Chief Information Security Officer with Fusion Bank, Alan Lee, who is Associate Partner with Ernst & Young Advisory Services Limited, and Fuller Yu, who is the Chief Information Security Officer with the Hospital Authority of Hong Kong. Moderating the discussion is Anna Gambros, who is the Asia Pacific Head of Data Protection, Privacy, and Cybersecurity with Norton Rose Fulbright, Hong Kong. Before I pass things over to Anna, I just want to make our audience aware that we encourage you to submit questions to our panel. We'll be spending some time at the end of the session to answer your questions. So please use the Q&A or chat box in the WebEx platform, which can be found in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Get your question in as soon as you can for a better chance of having your question submitted to the panel in the amount of time that we have. Without further ado, I will pass things over to Anna to dive into the panel. Go ahead, Anna.
Thanks so much, Clark, and good morning, everyone. As Clark said, my name is Anna Gambros. I'm based here in Hong Kong with law firm Norton Rose Fulbright, and I lead our Asia data protection, privacy, and cybersecurity practice. So I'm really thrilled to be moderating the panel today, and we've got a great topic of reshaping data governance and compliance to thrive in the new normal. So we've all heard quotes about data being the new oil or the oil of the 21st century. But is it? I mean, compared to data, dealing with oil is relatively straightforward. Drill, extract, refine, sell. But data is different. It carries many levels of risk and complexity. It has to be captured in a way that allows it to be used within the parameters of the law, as well as being able to create value for an organization, and that can be a difficult balance. And as we just heard from Nelson, by 2023, we're looking at 65% of the population having their data being covered by data regulation, so that's a lot to navigate. Data also has to be stored in a way that's secure, and not only that protects the data, but allows it to be queried and found, and then to allow value to be extracted from it. It also has to be able to be analysed, cross-matched, and used in a way that drives value again, but still doing so within the parameters of the various laws and regulations, as well as within the expectations of those who provide the data. And finally, data has to be disposed of when it's no longer relevant or when its retention can no longer be justified. So complex, yes, and that is the reason why we need data governance, which sets the framework for an organisation to handle data that they hold. Different industries and different organisations handle data governance differently. And today we have the benefit of a panel who can talk about their data governance experiences from very different perspectives. Our panellists come from healthcare, technology, fintech and consulting. And all of the different ways that they handle data governance within their organisations will depend on the nature of data and also the drivers for their business. So we're going to talk about the data governance challenges that they have and also how the events of the last year have reshaped how data governance is handled in their organisations. So in order to kick off the panel discussion today, I'd like to ask each of the panellists to introduce themselves and to talk about how they are, how the role of data, their role works with respect to data governance in their organisation. Harry, perhaps I can start with you.
Thanks, Anna. Hi, everyone. My name is Harry. I'm from Microsoft Cybersecurity Solutions Group. Same team as Nelson, that he did a very good job of kick off the section. So my job mostly is to talk to and also help our customer partners in the community to deal with matters on cybersecurity and also data protection, data governance related topic. Regarding the message just now, I just heard, and I think Anna did a very good job of summarizing most of the context. I think key thing, I also want to borrow what Nelson's section. So we find that for the explosion, I mean the increase of the data, the amount of data is expected to be more than double every 2 years. So I think for the last couple of years, because of the digital transformation, for whatever reason, we use more digital economy that we create and build a lot more data. So I think we can hear more and more the security, data breaches, how to handle the data, all these will be around our hot topic. So yeah, thanks. I will pass the time to other panelists.
Great, thanks, Harry. Patrick, would you like to introduce yourself and let us know about your role with respect to data governance in your organisation?
Hi, I'm Patrick. I'm the CISO of Fusion Bank. I know most of you may not heard about Fusion Bank. We are a fintech company as well as we are a bank. So we do a lot of fintech company they will do dealing with data. So, but we also under very strict regulatory requirements, which is under HKMA. So data is one of the things give me most headache doing my job. So in helping the bank to manage data, just like a traditional bank, we have a lot of policy and procedures, data classifications, and so on. Just one the bank, just like a traditional bank. But as well as one the bank has a traditional bank, we also have a fintech elements in this bank. So we use a lot of technology to deal with data, such as big data, such as AI, machine learning. We try to utilize technology to help us to manage data, and we get meaningful insights from data. That is one of my daily job, to balance the fintech environments as well as a very strict regulatory requirements from HKMA.
Great, thank you, Patrick. Alan, perhaps we could get your view, hear about your role and how and your interactions with respect to data governance.
Sure. Thank you, Anna. Good morning, everyone. It's my honor to join this event as the panelist to get some insights from other panelists and share my view. My name is Alan. I'm an associate partner with EY, the technology consulting practice focusing on cybersecurity and data privacy. So my role is to help clients implement enterprise-wide privacy governance program from organization, process, technology perspective. And also I advise clients on new innovation initiative from cybersecurity and technology risk perspective. And other key areas that I work with is to help clients address data protection regulations from multi jurisdictions as companies are working or operating across different countries. So just a brief observation in the new normal or pandemic. So I note that from my discussion with the client, there are many companies moving from the brick and mortar operation to online mode, and the key thing is innovation. So basically, what I see is they pack the innovation strategies of years and launch in 1 year in a very fast pace than ever. So I think the initial objective maybe before the pandemic is to provide better customer experience, more convenient to serve the customer, and maybe cost-effective operation model. But with the pandemic, because of the fast changing market, it's not just serving time better, is to capture the market. Initially to gain competitive advantage, and then later on to avoid suffering from competitive disadvantage. So in that innovation, data is an important element. As Anna just said, they were saying that data is new oil, data is new currency. So because data can help organizations generate lots of business value, so it's the key asset. And with that asset, they also need expertise. They also need technologies to make good use of them. And with that, there are very fast pace of acquisition of expertise, technology through outsourcing. That's rushing into a new technology, rushing in with innovation, bring about the concern of risk and compliance. And one point I would like to highlight though is, in addition to risk and compliance, another thing is the customer trust. The trust from customer is very important, because we all need the data from them. We all need the consent from them to analyze the data. We all need feedback from them on the personalized service. So don't forget to gain trust from customer. Don't just view data protection from compliance perspective. What is the minimum requirement? How to get the company comply with the regulation. We also need to think from customer sentiment perspective, because they don't talk to you with regulation. They talk to you with their feeling, their impression. So with that, every little things would count. Basically from your privacy communication, the presentation, and your interaction with the customer of your team, and more importantly, of your outsourced service provider, will all impact the customer impression on you. So that's why a privacy-friendly culture in an organization is very important. So how to do that? You will need to have a privacy governance program with the organization process and ongoing kind of training, education, awareness to make it sustainable, to have the culture and back in the daily operation of the organization. Don't just think about compliance. We need to think about to gain trust from customers.
Great, thank you, Alan. And we're going to dig a bit deeper into that topic a little bit later in the panel. Finally, Fuller, Just wanted to say hello, and also to get your to get an introduction from you. Obviously, you're in the healthcare industry, very interesting and challenging at the time. Can you let us know a little bit about your role in data governance in your organization?
Sure. Hi, good morning, everyone, and thanks, and as well, and thanks for inviting me to join the panel with all those elite panelists. And I think so. I'm the CISO of hospital authorities. So basically, we provide provide the healthcare services to almost every citizens in Hong Kong. That means we're also managing almost everyone's health records as long as you have any use our service before. So I think it's a huge challenge for us to make sure with a very sound, robust, and transparent data governance within the organizations, and how to make sure we make use of the data to enhance our service in both the qualities and also efficiency, because we are always overloading, particularly in the current backdrop of the COVID-19 fighting. So I think a good and sound data governance model is very important. It's really a part of our daily jobs, and I think my role is really to contribute to the robust data governance, and also to help to drive the digital transformations, but for healthcare and also for my organization.
Great, thanks, Fuller. And just to kind of continue on from what you were saying there, you know, in the events of the last year, and the new normal, as we like to call it, have you seen data governance change or transform?
I think the last year, I think is very good test bed for everyone to test that if we do have a effective and useful data governance framework or model in the organization. Particularly for healthcare, I think everyone knows that we are under a high pressures because of the backdrop of the COVID-19 fighting. And I think we see a huge changes in terms of the data's boundary, given that there's more increased remote users than before. And also there's more exchange data, not only within the organization, but also among the third parties between the governments, healthcare providers, pharmacy companies, and everyone, because we have the same goal to combat the virus. So I think there's a huge changes of the data branches, and also in terms of data utilization, they also change a lot, increase a lot, because the more users, the more business they request for more access to the data, not only the BAU operations, but really to make use of data to unlock the insights from the data using AI, big data, analytics, to really figure out how we can better to combat the virus, and also to come up with a vaccine available in a very short time period. So this is really a goal for that. Because of that, I mean, there's a huge challenge to the data governance model, that how we can make the decisions in a very quickly time frame, and also how we are managing those business demand, while to preserve the same data control requirement that Anna and other speakers talk about, data privacy, the limited access, authorized access as well, and also the data retention as well. So this is a huge challenge for us, and I think there's also the new risk introduced, where we meeting those new demands on the data's usage. And finally, externally, we also see the last year is also a year of the ransomware, and we see while we leverage the data, the bad guy, those bad guys, they also live with the same opportunity to monetize, those opportunities, hacking the weak VPN network, ransomware, those healthcare organizations that are already in the high pressure, ransomware, the pharmacy industry as well. So I think the bad guys also doing the same thing. This is introduce additional risk to how to make sure we have a good data governance.
Great, thank you, Fuller. Patrick, from the sort of fintech / financial services perspective, sort of versus healthcare perspective, have you seen a change in how data governance operates as a result of the events of last year?
From fintech perspective, we are trying to get data become more meaningful to our business. At the same time, we also need to consider how to make our regulator and our customer trust us on how doing the data. One thing I just mentioned is big data. We use this kind of technology to collect all the data, to put it in our data lake, and try to analyze a meaningful behavior of our customer or our system, and everything we can think of. We try to get it into one single data source to analyze it. This is one of the huge project for us. The first thing we consider security is how to make this exercise securely. That means we cannot let our business unit to easily to identify one single user in our systems. So we use a lot of technology like encryptions, like hash, make our data is not reversible. And when they aggregate the data, they cannot find any single individual person's information, but they can have big pictures on how the general public's behavior in our customer base. This is one of the things we try to use different technology, and we also safeguard all the information being fit into our data lake. We have a very detailed analysis on how the data, for example, personal identifiable data, then we will try to use different technology to mask it, to transfer it back into any other meaningful things to us, but they cannot reversibly to identify the people. So this is one of the big things we do. Another thing is we try to let our business have more instant understanding on the behavior of our customer and systems. So Echo Fuller's one of the initiative is remote access of the data. This is one of the challenge for us, and because we use different technology to standardize our data, so to certain data we will allow our business user have a remote instant access to draw some business decisions. This is one of the challenge for us as well. How many data we will allow them to access in this channel, and how many data they can use to interpret something meaningful. This is one of the challenging for us as well.
Great, thanks, Patrick. You mentioned using tools and technology to help you manage big data. Harry, you know, obviously you're work for one, or if not the biggest technology company in the world. I mean, can you talk to us a little bit about technology being an enabler and helping to enforce data governance?
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, well, so I think from the technology perspective, there would be a lot we can do right now in terms of like the whole life cycle from discover the data, know our data, and then how to enforce some governance, and even do some sort of like taking out what we call the dark data, which is something we may not know, which is have end user privacy information in our organization. So I mean, thanks also Patrick also quote as example from their firm also leveraging technology like AI, machine learning, or even automation tools that can help on that. So I think I would say that from the technology point of view, which is quite good in terms of the enabler and in the position. However, I think, and also from your day job as a lawyer or a legal firm, I think you also know that it's always we need to strike the balance between the laws enforcement regulations versus the technology. So I hope we will see that a lot more collaboration amongst maybe from the industry practitioner, the end users, maybe from the technology providers, and also from the law enforcement organization body, so we can have a more general alignment in that sense.
Great. Yeah, I mean, striking the balance is always the tricky one, and that's, you know, what we're often dealing with our clients for, looking at how, you know, you deal with this kind of plethora of data privacy regulations, yet having this you know, incredibly valuable data asset that you want to use for your organization. But I guess key in striking that balance is customer trust. And Alan, that's something that you touched on earlier. You know, because if you don't have customer trust, you know, that's a fairly damning blow to any organization. Do you want to talk to us a little bit more about you know, about gaining customer trust and what experience you've had with your clients, and you know, what your experiences have been there?
Sure. Yes. I have been helping client implement privacy governance program for many years. Initially, all the people would just keen to know the definition of personal data and try to avoid the definition, and then try to avoid the regulations. And I just tell them it doesn't work. We need to face it. It's our day job to use the data, so we can't break down the data and then they are not personal data and then forget the law. Then people try to accept it and gradually, and then they start gaining the knowledge of the regulatory compliance, and it's not a difficult task if it's embedded in your daily life. And also try to think as all of us are data subject at your normal life, and then when you work, you're a data user. So try to think from another angle. Then you will see what the customer expect. They don't expect to put the law in front of you and then try to argue with the company. So they just think, if that company does not respect me, then I just get away and then find another one. So, and I also know that there are research around the area which found that every tiny little things like how to present your privacy notice, how to interact with your customer would count on the customer sentiment, customer impression. For example, some privacy notice may read like that: we don't use your personal data for other purpose, and then we just use this for providing your personalized service and so forth. So this is a straightforward kind of things. And other type would be to give some conjunctive reasoning. For example, we make money for providing a elite service, customize the news for you. That's why we charge X amount of $X per month. That's how we make money, and we don't sell your data. We don't collect excessive data for any profit. So that's reasoning. And another one is empathy. So some privacy statement may be like that. We are also a user. We are also a mobile user. We know that we are concerned with data privacy. So we don't use your data for any other purpose and so forth. So based on the 3 types of personal privacy notice, the research find that the empathy one, the conjunctive one, does have impact on how the customer perceive the companies respect the data. So by the same logic, so every little things that you interact with your customer, maybe you can think, oh, it's just tedious. For example, I personally received quite a number of cold call from some finance company, and when I asked them, how do you get my data, and some company just replied that I don't know, and some just hang up the phone, hang up the call. So what's the impression you have if that customer service guy represent bank A, and they just hang up the call when you ask this kind of question? So this kind of interaction do have a significant impact on the customer trust. So when you run your privacy governance program, try to think not only from the regulatory perspective, also from the customer sentiment standpoint, and also take care every part throughout the process to make sure that at least you yourself from the data subject perspective also comfortable. So that's why what I keep mentioning is the privacy-friendly culture or privacy-friendly company do have significant difference from those pure regulatory compliance company.
It's an interesting point. You know, when clients come to me sometimes and they say, well, you know, can we do this within the scope of the law? You know, maybe technically they can, but you know, we often tell them to sit back and take the creepiness test. You know, so if you technically can use data, you know, in accordance with the law in this way, but how would your customers really feel if you did that? You know, would they feel violated, or that you'd use their data a step too far? So yeah, it's just kind of that step beyond kind of regulatory compliance, you know, and looking at the customer expectations as well. So I think it's a great point. And Fuller, obviously this is probably an issue that you deal with, you know, having to balance how to get insights from data, but balancing that against kind of data privacy concerns. I mean, how do you tackle that in your organization?
Yeah, so I think there's quite a lot of challenge to how to balance. One way to unlock the weight of the data. Secondly, how to also balancing the data privacy. In fact, the data privacy, the user privacy is very a crucial element at the part of the overall the data governance control objectives. So when we make use of data to unlock lots of insight, we use a lot of framework to ensure before you know, those data is being processed, they would be really have a good controls of that. For example, we adopt lots of technology to to anomalize the data. We move the attributes of the PII, and also make sure the data will be only make use, you know, when they're used, they will aggregate together and to put to the AI engines to processing that, or to take out some of the business insight. So I think particularly in the backdrop of the last year, what was happening, talking about the new normal, we also I think we experienced that there's a need to always to revisit the current data governance model, the structure and process, and try to really to recheck any assumption that we make previously. And yeah, as I mentioned, in fact, the last year is a real test for everyone. And then I think it's also a good, while this is a challenge, it's also a good opportunity for us to reassess any assumption that we make before, to really relook into the risk appetite that maybe changed already, as other panelists talk about. Previously, the data may be just within your house. Now, the data may go outside your boundary, and more and more stakeholder access to the data. So the risk appetite may be changed. That means those current control may also need to be changed also. And I think another thought is really we found the data governance model has to be more agile and flexible. So I think quite a lot of business leader, we talk about your business has to become a more modular, in a sense, to adopt the new normal. I think it may be probably also applying the same concept to data governance. That the model has to be also agile and flexible, in a sense that you know, we have to make sure those you know, control and assessment to be also adopt to following the pace of the business, to really get we become enablers, you know, for business to make sure the data to create a value, and while at the same time to keep the same protection level and also data privacy level, to make sure that those areas are well managed and the risk is also well managed. So I think this is a pretty good time for us to revisit that, and also hopefully to introduce any new thinkings in terms of how to make the data governance even more sound and more practical to our business.
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations are learning that a data governance framework is not a document you draft and put in a drawer for you know, to check on every now and again. It's very much a living document, and something that has to be revised and reshaped constantly, you know, with whatever types of changes your business is going through, the environment is going through, or the data is going through.
Yeah, fully agree. Yeah.
Yeah, great. But I think the other thing about data governance framework is that you want to make sure that it doesn't constrain your business. And, often, you can see that there could be concerns that, data can be kept in silos. It can't then be used across different parts of the business. I mean, I think I'd like to get views from both Harry and Patrick on this point. How can you actually use data governance to eliminate silos and enable enterprise-wide data collaboration?
Okay, let me start first.
Great, thanks, Patrick.
Okay, I think we start a virtual bank just like 2 years ago, and we still have very limited services, small team. So for us, it's easier to get all the business head together to understand how we run the data. We have a single data source to collect informations, and then we have a team to extract data for different teams. For us to manage this practice is still easy. But the other thing is we need to become transparent to our business users what we are doing, and also transparent to our customer and transparent to our regulators. We need to demonstrate to them we know what we are doing. For example, to our customer, we has a lot of notification where we try to access certain things, like our customer try to log in our systems. We will have a notification to our customer. We get them a comfortable feelings that the bank has full control, understand what we are doing, and transparent to them. And the other thing we try to do is we make the data more granular. For example, in the traditional banking, they will just ask the customer, are they willing to receive direct marketing materials? For us, we try to make it more granular on different channels. So if they want to receive the message from us, from SMS, from direct phone call, or in emails and app notifications, we try to break down how we access the data to become more transparent to the customer. They have more options to access the information from us. This is the same thing we imply to our internal users. We try to break down to more options for them, not just one single options, and they cannot filter out the data, or they have to do more manual jobs on their side to make the data meaningful for them. And for regulator, it's the same. They're one of the customers, so they already understand what we are doing with the informations. But the other thing is how we control the data. We mentioned about big data, AI, machine learning. One of the key things is AI model. This is one thing. Traditionally, the bank has no this capacity to understand how we define the AI model, how we understand this model. If it goes wrong, do we have any sufficient people here? They have expertise to understand this is something wrong. And then we try to demonstrate we have this kind of capacity to run the AI, to understand the AI. So make that our regulator, they have a feeling that we really understand what we are doing. We just not buy a product from the market to put it there. It once has a black box. This is not something we try to do. We are fintech company, so we would drill down the technology, drill down the controls, drill down how the model define the business decisions. This is one thing we have full control. I think this is one of the key elements we try to do is we give comfortable feelings on our customer, business unit, regulator that we have control on our data.
Great. So it's a combination of many different things that are helping you in that regard. Harry, can I get your thoughts on this point?
Sure, thanks. So again, from a technology perspective, I would say the change of our user behavior, no matter it's like maybe the COVID, the new normal, or the work remote situation, or using digital transformation. I think in the past, very simple example, I think all of us in the past, we will use company aside machine to do our work, and then it's hard for us to take all those data out of our organization environment. But now, because the ease of the technology, mobility, cloud, whatever it is, so I think every devices could have some form of organization assets, or even what we call those data or private information of our end user or end customers. So I think to your point, I think right now we need to have a unified approach that can apply and also apply or visibility across different so-called digital estate, from maybe a structural data on a backend database, or customer enterprise system, or from our end user computing or the device or mobile device that we may touch on the data. So again, I think that number one, the technology is there. I'm not trying to talk about the advertisement of the product, but it's already have a way now to do all these kind of unified data governance or control. The thing is, again, we may need, again, the usual way of we got the platform, and then we may need the process and also the people awareness together.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. And one of the things that that Nelson brought up in his presentation, and sort of I'm switching gears now a little bit more towards risk and looking at risk in the whole framework, was around insider risk and around the tools that you can have around to help you identify insider risk. I mean, how can organizations tackle the insider risk issue?
So just some example, I think we also experience a lot when an organization gets some employee going to leave the company, maybe the last notice period serving, or maybe some unpleasant employee, that may be the behavior of that will be changing. So if someone is suddenly off night, out of office hour, trying to access a common drive, shared drive, and download a lot of documents from his personal device, or taking out and read all the document, is an abnormal behavior. Or another way, if there's a way that we can feel the sentiment of the employee, when be it like maybe during the enterprise IM instant messaging, that he say something not appropriate, that is also an indicator that maybe something bad happened. So I think the point what we talk about from our view from Microsoft, we see the insider risk could be another potential area, and also we need to look into how to proactively prevent all these kind of bad actors, maybe from internal to happen. So one thing about the data breaches, of course, it could be a security control. It could be the data leakage policy that we talk about, or data governance. But another factor is the human being, the employees or insider, whether they are doing a good right doing or wrong doing. This is also important. So from the point of insider risk, it is more like to predict or have from the technology to use it to track all these kind of things.
Great, thank you. I mean, that's interesting. And I mean, Alan, we've heard from Harry's perspective around the kind of technologies around insider risk. What are other strategies that you're helping your clients with dealing with this particular issue?
Sure. For insider threat, I think the ever effective approach is security policy, SETA program. SETA meaning security education training awareness program. And nowadays, I think one more component would need to be added is the technology to monitor the behavior. So how does it work? So we need to make the employee aware that how they should use the technology, how they should use the data in the organization, what are the policy guidelines, and then make them aware, educated, and then let them know that we do have technology to monitor, to detect such kind of misbehavior, and so to create a to deter them from committing the misbehavior. So that's very, very important. Previously, maybe we just put some control without letting the employee know. And then suddenly, if they install the game, install an offline software, and then they will generate a list and then pass to their boss. Hey, you install some malware. But nowadays, we need to let them know. We need to have all the tools, all the policy in place, so that they will not, or they will just judge the possibility of being catched, and the serious, whether it's a serious consequence of being catched, in order to make the decision whether to take the action.
Interesting. Fuller, I just wanted to hear from you. I mean, we're looking at these different kind of risks, and obviously insider risk is one of them. I mean, what are the best practice strategies that organizations should be looking at to ensure that data is protected and properly handled and governed within an organization?
Yes, I think it's a very good question. If you look into our organizations, I think we have privilege to custodian to protect almost every citizen's health information. That is very crucial, and I think we always try to adopt the best practice, but at the same time, because of the uniqueness, we also need to look into the particular risk that we are dealing with. So I think first of all, to identify the crown jewels is very important. So we try to understand where's those critical data in-house, where are they, which particular database has this kind of data, and what's the data combination, because some data may have no PII, some data will have a identified information as well. So those discovery, I think, is very important. That while quite a lot of organizations, they may miss that without doing any identification, just buy some vendor solution and try to apply that. I think this is not the best investment, I think. So really need to have this kind of a good discovery exercise. And then once you can identify where your critical risk is, then I think this is good to really apply the right level of the protections and detection capabilities to do that. I think all those panelists, they talk about it already. The normal patterns, detections, look at the anomalies, exception. I think this is all we try to apply. And I think keeping a monitors, I think, is very important. While I think Alan talked about this, the training, I think, is very important to really educate our users, let them know their capabilities. I think it's also to help a lot to build the overall the very strong and sound and robust governance model. And I just want to talk about one more particular cases for HA. As you know, we manage all those clinical data for citizens. So I think we also try to align with the overall Hong Kong governance, the Hong Kong government's strategies to provide more data sharing. So in fact, we create our data collaboration labs, not only for internal, but also for the external parties, including universities, institutions, research, that they can go into our lab to make use of those data and try to do some good project that can help to increase, enhance the overall local healthcare services. So I think for this kind of project, I think we spend a lot to understand the risk and try to make use of practical model that those stakeholders, they can access to our data in a secure way, and also make sure those data privacy, data protection are all well protected. So I think we try to learn together, and hopefully while we can provide this data for the research and those technology investment, I think the data governance is really a good practice and a good example that how we can protect the data and also make it more useful and accessible by everyone.
Yeah, it's a great example, and there's a lot of complexities there of the things that you need to balance, and the different drivers for being able to use that information. Yet kind of balancing it against the obligations that you have to protect the information. So I think that's a great example. Clark, I know we've got some audience questions. Shall we turn to some of those at this point?
Yep, thanks, Anna. We do indeed have some questions coming in from the audience. There's quite a number of questions, so we'll try to get to as many as we can. I'll probably just throw one question to each one of you. So won't focus on one question for all of you. So I'll go to this first one for Patrick. This is from Hannah Kim. Regarding data governance, I would like to ask how private companies and governments cooperate to protect data or information from external threats, especially in China and the United States, to establish relevant policies.
Okay. I'll put it in more general. For external parties, we share informations. So we will have a very clear due diligence checks. For example, some organization we're going to share on our ecosystems. We have to very clear their backgrounds, how they use our data, where they will process the data or store the data, and what kind of technology we would impose to exchange our data, for example. What kind of encryption they're going to use. The media we're going to share is on a cloud-based storage or in a physical media we're going to share with them, like CD or DVD or hard copy papers. So we need to demonstrate we really understand what is the risk. We use this media, this channel to share the data. For governments, we also need to comply with regulatory requirements on how to set up a data channel with them. And if they request the data, we also we have a compliance team to analyze, is there any really get a business you need to share those data. And sometimes they just ask too much information, or we interpret badly, and then we might share extra data with them. So we need to really understand what is the reason behind they ask for those data, and is this sufficient for us to just give certain information, or they need a full picture? How many data we're going to share? We have an expert team here to analyze the request and then make the judgment call.
Thanks, Patrick. And then before we go on to our next question, we do have one more polling question to submit to our audience. So that question is, who is in charge of data ownership at your company? The Chief Data Officer, Chief Information Officer, a director-level data manager, or other? So while the audience is answering that polling question, I'll go to our next question from the audience. This comes from Phyllis Wong, and I'll submit this one to Harry. As mentioned in the introduction, more and more jurisdictions are going to have their own data protection laws and regulations. Many of them may include restrictions on cross-border data transfer. Do the panelists foresee more data protectionism, and how will these regulatory developments impact compliance programs?
Well, first of all, thanks for the question. I think to this point, yes, definitely we will see more and more of this data protectionism. Be it for some reason, it may be a bit of off topic, but you know, the geopolitical situation, or those a lot of kind of local regulations definition on that. To that point, I think it's also like in the earlier presentation from Nelson, that we will see more regulations set up and modified and updated daily, over 100 maybe. So again, I think for developing of this is again, I would say this also up to the point of the regulations body, but from maybe from the end user industry practitioner, or who dealing with all these compliance related, believe again may need to have a more holistic view of all these, as particularly if you're dealing with if you're working with an MNC multinational corporate, dealing with like in Asia 13, 14 countries, then you may need to have a more holistic system of a process to govern on it. Either will you have a team to deal with it, or either you may leverage some technology to deal with it. But yes, I think we will see more and more of this pattern.
Thanks, Harry. Our next question comes from Stuart Williams. I'll throw this one to Alan. With a change in data protection laws in Hong Kong coming soon, with potentially more punitive measures such as fines at an earlier stage, such as with the GDPR, how do you see the governance landscape changing here? Do you think firms will take it seriously before the first fines are issued?
I would This is a difficult question, and I just offer my view, my personal view. From the GDPR perspective, and when it first launched, all people are talking about 4% of the global revenue, the fine. So it did have a significant driving force to enable or to make the company get a good foundation to set up the governance framework, to set up all the compliance, the baseline, and so forth. But my personal view on the ongoing health of the privacy governance is even more effective if it's driven from the market. What I mean is the customer trust, customer offering data, and the value generated from data. So if you are not a privacy-friendly company, then people will move away from you. You will lose your data, and you will lose your business value. That kind of penalty is more serious than the fine. But of course, for the initial stage, people or companies would take it very serious if it's a significant fine. But gradually, I think the driving force would be from the market to gain trust from customers. So
thanks,
that's
Alan.
my view.
Yep, thank you so much, Alan. I'll throw this next one to Fuller. This comes from David Chi. In terms of insider risk, how do you answer staff's concerns that their employer is spying on them? Do you think everyone is comfortable being, quote, watched by their company every moment? Also, how do you avoid the more old school way of data leakage, e.g. hard copies or taking photos with a phone camera? If people are aware they're being viewed, would they still take the route of downloading insider data via a tracked route?
I think it's a great question. First of all, I think we always talk about we are doing a risk management, and we are not going to manage the risk to the zero level. So we also have a concept talk about the residual risk. I think, for example, wherever you try to protect your data, your guys can still taking a camera to take the picture and send it out to the social media. We see these cases. So in fact, how you can deal with that? You can deal with that. I think in my previous role, I do help to support those call centers. If you look at the call centers in India or other country, when they come in, they also drop their mobile phone to the locker. I think we all know that, and this is the way you can put that. But I think the idea is that where is your boundary, or where is your acceptable risk level that you are trying to deal with that. And then so first I think I back to what I previously talked about. Start with to really figure out where's your crown jewels and how you can do that. For example, you can do the watermarking as one of the effective way. Even people download or taking the pictures. The watermark is still a good tool to chase that, and then you create good feeling to the user that they are being under monitoring for some of that. So this is another way to do that. And back to your question, I think it's more important to be first of all, let the user know that, as I mentioned, know that what's their privilege. They knew that when they get the data, what's their accountable and their responsibilities, and try to make use of the education to do that. I think most of the users, they're pretty good users, and when you educate them, you provide the hygiene, security tips. You also highlight that it's not only good for your professional life, it's also good for your personal life as well, to protect your digital footprints, in your personal life. And also, there's always some bad people, bad guy within your company. I think, as I mentioned, the detection, I think, is one way to do that. But every time, I think deterrence, you can use that, but really use that with a caution to make sure they know that you do whatever control or monitoring is for a very good reason, to protect the company. I think this is the way we should always educate, and also positively to also provide the good tips to the user to avoid this kind of insider data breach.
Thank you, Fuller. We'll just go to one more question here. We just have a few minutes. I'll throw this to Harry. Please do try to keep your answer as concise as possible, as we are running a bit out of time. But this comes from Karina Milligan. For SMEs who don't have the headcount or budget to outsource all data governance, compliance, risk, etc., is it possible to simply outsource some key areas to ensure we are compliant? If so, what would those key areas be, and can they be set up to work in tandem with existing department heads?
Short answer, definitely could selectively outsource some part of the key components. But I apologize, I may not be the expert in this area. What is the best to pick? I think we got a whole full bunch of panelists today with diversity from consultancy firm, from industry expert, law firm as well. So I hope, yeah, we will have someone to follow up with that, and then to help you to guide you through.
I guess, Alan, do you have a view on that? Maybe the key areas that would be best to outsource?
Definitely, but it really depends on different organization. But bear in mind that we only can outsource the function, not the accountability. So I would suggest to have a chat with Henry's team so that we can provide a more detailed or specific recommendations.
Sure. All right. Thank you, everyone. That unfortunately is all the time that we have. Thank you so much to all of our panelists for taking the time out to share their thoughts and expertise. Harry, Patrick, Alan, and Fuller. And of course, thank you so much to Anna for moderating the discussion as well. Thank you to our viewers for watching. If we may suggest, you can join our Digital Transformation Series LinkedIn community by scanning the QR code that you see on your screen. You can keep track of our Digital Transformation Series events at our series website at digitaltransformation.hk. And before we go, we'd just like to once again thank our gold sponsor for the webinar, which is Microsoft. Thank you again to everyone for joining. We hope you enjoyed the discussion, and we look forward to welcoming you back next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Have a good day.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.